name is Michaela Salway, and I've been posting on YouTube now for like a few weeks. I think I've got 6 or 7 videos, and the whole point of this YouTube channel was to document my life moving overseas, basically moving from New Zealand to Germany for my PhD, and it's something that I've wanted to do for the longest time. One of the things that I wanted to do though is like not a New Year's resolution, because it's not really New Year's, it's more the start of my PhD, is I wanted to write a letter to myself so that when I got to the end of my PhD I could look back on this and see like how far I came and yeah, see what I was feeling like before I started the PhD, before anything goes wrong or goes right, or before any of my successes or failures. I just wanted to document this and kind of set in stone and set on video the beginning of this process, because it's going to be such a big ordeal. It's going to be really exciting, but it's also, from what I've heard, one of the biggest and hardest things that you can do. So grab yourself a cup of tea. A lot of my videos so far have been really lighthearted. This one's just going to be real chatty, and I've got my tea. I'll be drinking from it. Grab yourself a tea or a coffee, depending on what time of day it is when you're watching this, and I hope that you enjoy. So if all things go well, this video should be going up as I'm on the train to Tübingen for my very first day, which I'm gonna video, don't you worry. I'll be making a video of my first day experiencing Tübingen and getting ready, and yeah, just the whole first day as a PhD student, which obviously is just going to be like meetings and getting to know people and not really that much study, but I'm really excited for it, so I will video it. I was originally going to write a letter of like, I'm feeling this way and I want to achieve these things and I want to make sure I prioritize myself. And I definitely felt like those things were important, but I also felt like I've gone through such a journey to starting my PhD, and I almost wanted to recount what that journey has been so that I can look back at the end of the 3 or 4 or 5 years and see actually what it took to actually start. But I've come through it and I've ended up in a place where I actually could not be happier. I don't know if it's just something in New Zealand, but people just don't really talk about what it takes to start a PhD. A lot of people don't talk about it because they're ashamed of failure and they're ashamed of trying for something and not achieving it. And so you only end up hearing about the success stories of the people who got like the Rhodes Scholarship or the Wolf Fisher or all of the big scholarships to all the big UK universities or the big American scholarships, and you don't really hear about the people who don't achieve that and yet applied for everything. And I know that when I went into my journey of wanting to do a PhD and definitely wanting to do it overseas, it was not at all what I expected. I've done all of my studies in New Zealand. I did my bachelor's in history and Spanish at the University of Auckland. I then went straight into an honours in history at the University of Auckland, and then went straight into a master's in history at the University of Auckland. And my ideal plan when I finished and handed in my master's in February 2020 was to start my PhD in September 2020. It's now January 2022, so it's safe to say that that didn't happen. Basically everywhere that I applied to was in the UK. And I'm here, you could say, because I failed. But I don't want to still call it that, because I know that for me and for my topic, Germany's actually the best place for me to be. And I think I fought that for the longest time. I was fighting to go where I thought I had to go, because you have to go to Edinburgh so that you get a good job afterwards, or you have to go to like a top 10 university so that you can get a good job afterwards. And honestly, everyone that I've talked to has said that doesn't guarantee a job afterwards. The best thing you can do is go to a university where you're going to get the most out of it for your PhD, and you can produce something that you're really proud of. You're working with supervisors who are really knowledgeable about your topic, and so they can give you that feedback and that help that you wouldn't otherwise have just because you went to a good university but was paired with a supervisor that didn't know much about your topic. The fact that I failed to get funding for the countless number of universities that I applied to, for me, actually isn't a failure, even though that's what people call it. Especially in New Zealand, I feel like the culture is so toxic at the university around being ashamed to speak about the fact that you are applying overseas. And I did speak about it, which is what made the pressure so much worse when I didn't get anything. Because normally you don't hear about people applying for stuff and then you hear it in like back channels when I mentioned to somebody that I was looking at applying to the UK, and they're like, oh, well, you can try, but don't get your hopes up because this girl didn't get it and that's why she's doing it here. And so you only hear about it through people's failures. There was this idea that nobody leaves New Zealand unless it's like the super accomplished people, the people who have been like A+ students the whole way through. And a lot of these people, I realized, don't have jobs or aren't married, or like all of my circumstances, which was like during my master's, I was working up to 30 hours a week while full-time studying. And so I didn't have the time to just dedicate my entire life to what I was doing. Even though I wanted to, I was just in a living situation where I couldn't. It's really hard to quote unquote compete with the people who are living at home or living in an apartment that their parents are paying off, or living in student accommodation, which is just going on a student loan so that they don't have to think about it and they can just dedicate their time to their studies. I wasn't in that situation. It felt like it was a really toxic environment thinking about wanting to move overseas for my PhD. And so I guess if anything, I wanted to not only recount the story so that I can look back at the end of my PhD and be really proud of what I accomplished, but also to let other people who might be in my situation, or other students who are looking at wanting to do a PhD but don't know what their options are, like, this video is for you so that you have somebody who knows what it was like. Yeah, if you have any questions about what I went through, just put it in the comments below. I'd be more than happy to ask, because I didn't have anyone. I had to kind of go through this whole process alone, and so if I can help in any way, I think that would be pretty awesome. My story was I started applying for PhDs during the middle of my master's. A lot of people were really shocked about that, because a lot of people wait until the end of their master's so that they can just dedicate the time to the thesis, and then when they've got the results back, then they can apply for universities, because it's a grueling process and it's really hard and it takes a lot of time. Not only did I apply for just one university, I actually applied for 3. And so it was 3 different applications, 3 different topics, because every supervisor wants to change it in their certain way. Even though I went to each different university with my own idea, they ended up changing it in certain ways. So you had to keep up with the certain stance that they wanted to take, or the argument, or however they wanted to change it. And so it wasn't just working on one proposal, it was working on 3. So in the middle of 2019, I applied for Leeds and Birmingham, which are both in the UK. And then I also applied to Alberta in Canada. I told a few people about the fact that I was applying, but I knew it was pretty unlikely that because I was doing these while I was doing my master's, I didn't have the time to like make a really good application. And it was also, there's this like, again, unspoken saying that nobody gets it on their first round, which I think then puts a lot of pressure on the second round. I just spent countless hours on each application, and I was studying full time and I was working like 30 hours a week. And like my friends said to me that they barely saw me for those months that I was writing these applications, because I just didn't have the time to do anything else. It took a lot out of me, and I didn't realize how long it was going to take, especially considering that I didn't end up getting anything from these 3. Like I just said, each application was slightly different, and it changed depending on the specialties of the supervisors that I was working with. So for example, at Leeds, it was going to be a completely different topic, because they felt like the topic that I wanted to do wasn't something that was suited to a PhD. It was kind of bigger and there wasn't as much back knowledge on it, and so it was going to be quite difficult. And so we ended up going down a completely different stance. So not only was I writing 2 applications for Birmingham and Alberta, which were slightly different, I was also working on a completely different application for Leeds, which I had to do a whole bunch more research for. So I got accepted to Leeds and Birmingham pretty quickly, which I was shocked about. I thought it was going to be really hard to get into these universities, but it wasn't. Like, I fulfilled all the requirements. I had 2 modern languages separate from English. So I did a Spanish degree and I did German in high school, and I got up to a B2 level. One of the reasons that I'm now able to study in Germany. But I quickly realized that the UK wasn't going to be an option without a scholarship, because my fees were going to be about $180,000 New Zealand dollars, and I couldn't do that. So over that December and January, I wrote 1 scholarship application for Birmingham and then 3 scholarship applications for Leeds. Out of those 4 applications, I got shortlisted for 1, but I didn't get any. And then the scholarship for Alberta was included in the acceptance. So I spent months every day refreshing the page, waiting to see if Alberta got back to me. Because if you get a place, you get a scholarship. I didn't get a place, and they said there was something to do with departmental issues or funding cuts or whatever it was, but I don't know, I feel like in history there's always funding cuts and there's always departmental issues, and especially with COVID, everything's taken a big hit. And so proposed supervisor there ended up telling me, like, yeah, your chances are pretty low, not just because it's you, but because it's the timing of COVID. And so not only was it the fact that the department was having issues, but it was the fact that COVID was putting a lot of pressure on universities. So I didn't get into Alberta, and that was the last one I heard back from, and I was pretty crushed. I guess I thought that I had everything I needed, in the sense of I had a first class honours for my honours and my masters. I had 2 separate languages to my mother tongue. I was learning Latin. I'd volunteered for a million different things, and I genuinely thought that I was good enough, because that's all anyone says that you need on paper. And so the plan to start my PhD in September 2020 was pretty much crushed, and I was gutted. I was really gutted, because not only was I gearing towards starting my PhD and thinking about these topics, I had no plan. I didn't plan to stay in New Zealand for that long. I didn't plan to have I had to find a full-time job. I had to completely rewrite what my next year was going to look like, because I thought I was moving overseas, which I shouldn't have put all my eggs in one basket, but I don't know, I genuinely thought that I was good enough. And everyone that you talk to that did get a scholarship, of course they're going to be positive, because they're the ones that got the scholarships, and they're the ones that say it wasn't that hard. I wasn't prepared, especially because I got shortlisted for one of the scholarships. I wasn't prepared for what it was going to be like when I didn't get it. And then I think as well, reflecting on that year of writing applications, I didn't have that much support, because I didn't talk to my supervisor about it that much, because I didn't think that they were allowed to help. I thought that it was entirely up to your proposed supervisors. I thought they were supposed to provide you with all the help, but then they can't really see your personal statement. And so I didn't realize, and I should have, but I didn't realize that my current supervisors at Auckland Uni were able to help me with that. And then not only did I not realize that, I also was really afraid to talk to them about it, because the one lecturer at University of Auckland that I talked to about considering going overseas for my PhD basically told me not to even consider it. And why am I even thinking about leaving Auckland when I have such incredible supervisors, which I do. My supervisors at the University of Auckland were amazing, and they were so helpful, and I really feel like that they were the main reasons that I got my first class honours, because of their support and the ideas that they had. But if I want a job in academia after this, and if I want to expand my horizons and meet other people, which is the whole point of a PhD, is to meet a new cohort and spend time in a completely different environment, being challenged by different ideas from different worldviews that you just don't get in your home country, then I had to go overseas. And so I was really gutted. And it was hard to explain it to anyone, because everyone was like I had family that just wanted me to stay in New Zealand because it was the safer option. And I had friends that didn't really want me moving overseas because it was inconvenient or it was far. I just felt like I didn't really have that much support. And so taking this blow by myself was rough. And so at the end of those applications, because I'd been accepted to the universities, I deferred my start date by a year so that I could still apply for some other scholarships. There were some very poorly advertised ones, like the Commonwealth Scholarship that I applied for and didn't get. And I even, with no luck behind me at all, applied for the overly competitive Rhodes Scholarship in the hopes of getting something for a delayed start, and nothing. So by the end of this first year of applications, I had done 3 university applications and 5 scholarship applications, and oh my gosh, all while trying to work and study now towards my Latin course. Despite all of this, I was pretty determined to try again. I knew that doing an international PhD was something that I really wanted to do, not only for the chance of going overseas, but to meet new people, like I said before, and to work with different supervisors and to be challenged by different worldviews on my topic. And I was also going off the fact of that same quote where everyone gets it on round 2. And so I reached out to a bunch of different universities. At first, it was just Sheffield, Edinburgh, Liverpool, St Andrews, and York. And then I did a slightly later application for ACU, which is the Australian Catholic University in Australia. I don't know why, but people were genuinely shocked that I was applying to that many universities. From what I heard, most people only apply to about 4 universities, but my whole plan was, all I'm doing is working at the moment, and I was doing my Latin course, but that could go, like, it was a self-driven course, and so I thought, like, that can just go on the back burner for a little while I focus on these applications. And if applying to more and spending that much more time increases the chances of getting a scholarship, then why wouldn't I? And so I did it. I spent, like, again, my entire spring and summer applying to 6 more universities in the hopes that I could get something. And all of these universities were saying that my topic was really well suited to what the university is currently striving for, and a lot of the research outputs that they're looking for at the moment, my topic was really well suited to. So not only was it that I felt like I wanted to be there, it felt like I had a topic that aligned with the university, and surely then I'd have a high chance of getting a scholarship. And also, like, it just felt right. And I don't know how to explain this because clearly I was wrong, but it felt so right to be with these supervisors and these universities and being close to the archives and just the whole support network at all of these universities, the reading groups and the PhD seminars that they had on offer. Because, I don't know, trust your instincts or not, I just genuinely felt like Edinburgh was going to be the place. And my topic would have been really well suited there, but apparently not. So this time around, I was a lot more vocal about the fact that I was applying for things, and people were really shocked. They're like, you're applying for more than 4 universities. That's way more than what most people do. You're bound to get it. All you need is one. The famous sentence, all you need is one. And honestly, I had everything on paper. By now, I had my grades back for my master's when I was applying, rather than it being like a conditional offer. I had my first class honours for my MA. I had my 2 foreign languages and was almost at the end of my program for learning Latin. I had tons of volunteer experience. I founded a public history initiative where we had a blog and podcast, which was a whole bunch of different publications. I also had a publication this time around for a completely different history topic. Literally on paper, I had everything that they were wanting. I heard back from the UK universities first, and I got accepted to all of them. And so then I set about doing my scholarship applications. For Edinburgh, I had 4 scholarship applications. St Andrews, I had 5 scholarship applications. Liverpool, I had 1, and York, I had 3 applications. I hadn't yet heard back from ACU, but there was also 1 scholarship application due for there as well. So all in all, I started working on 14 scholarship applications in the hopes that I get one. Again, I was told that COVID had put pressure on money and positions, and not only was there less funding, but they were accepting less people in order to account for the funding. And the result? Nothing. I got 1 shortlist in the UK. To be fair, I still hadn't heard back from ACU when I heard back about all the UK universities, but my dream was to go to the UK because that's where that's where I thought the hub for medieval history was. And that's why they call it a failure. Because after all of these scholarship applications and all of these acceptances to universities, no matter how much time I put into it and no matter how much effort I put into it, literally nothing. And that was a hard blow. It was a really hard blow. And amongst hearing all of that disappointment and frustration, I actually heard back from ACU that I got the scholarship. And I was in disbelief. Like, I clearly, vividly remember we were in the middle of a kitchen renovation and I got the email, and my phone at the time wasn't accepting emails. Like, it wouldn't show me a notification when I got an email. And so I went through and I just refreshed the inbox, and it showed that I'd received a new email a few hours ago and I got the scholarship, and I had to just send in a few more documents so that they could finalize everything and send me the official offer. But I just sat there and it was like, I don't mean to say this in a bad way, but I had no joy. I was not sad. I was just completely emotionless. I think because I was preparing to not receive a scholarship because that's everything that I had heard from all of the other universities. So I was like, well, clearly I'm not going to get anything for this last one either. It was kind of like a last-ditch attempt, and my hopes weren't very high. And so we started looking into and preparing for moving to Australia. The original offer was for a July to September start, and I got the offer in, I think, May or June. Like, it was quite late for me to suddenly start getting ready to move my life overseas, and Luke was still studying, and we couldn't really make it work for the July to September start date. And then in amongst this all, New Zealand went into lockdown, and so we wouldn't have been able to leave the country anyway. So I pushed it out to January, thinking like, yeah, we'll be out of lockdown by that point, we'll have sold everything in our house, it'll give us time to finish the kitchen renovation, we can go. And so we pushed it out to January, and we started planning for the move. We booked our flights, we started looking at apartments, we were looking at gyms that Luke could potentially work in or that we could just visit. We were looking at churches, we had friends over there that we were going to meet up with. And I even started watching some YouTubers over there just to see what life in Melbourne was going to be like. Like, we were pretty set to go. I'd chosen a bank that I wanted to open an account with. Like, I was in the mindset that we were going to Australia, and a part of me was really gutted that it wasn't the UK, and I was even looking into options for a study abroad so that we could go overseas and experience the whole European experience. Maybe in my second or third year, and we were looking at study options for Luke to see if that would work for him. But overall, our plan was to go to Australia. And then there was a spanner in the works. Basically, my dream since I was 16 was to live in Europe at some point. And it's why I applied for so many UK universities, was that being on this side of the world, close to all of the archives and to all the people and a white Christmas and just a completely different way of life was what I had been dreaming for. And I realized that one of the main reasons I was so hesitant to go to Australia was that it's really not that different to New Zealand. And I know people will say that it is different, and it is, but in the grand scheme of things, it's more similar to New Zealand than Germany is, for example. And being on this side of the world, the Northern Hemisphere, was just such a dream that it literally kept me up at night, ironically. Melbourne was good, and it was a great city, and I had amazing supervisors, I had a scholarship, it made sense that we should go to Melbourne, and that would be a good stepping stone so that we could move overseas but still be close to family, have a good PhD, have a safe PhD, and then maybe do a 1-year postdoc over in Germany, or do a 1-year postdoc over in the UK or Edinburgh or wherever we wanted to go. And I mean, that was essentially the idea, is I think we set into this idea of there's always later. And I guess I was sick of feeling that way, because I'd been applying for, obviously before this whole PhD thing, I'd applied for a master's overseas, I'd applied for an honours overseas, I'd applied for a study abroad during my undergrad. 7-8 years I'd been applying for stuff, and it just felt like it was always later, and it was never actually happening. I'm also having to factor in that I don't want to study forever. I would love to, but I don't want to be a student forever who's constantly working a million jobs just to try and support ourselves while studying and not on scholarship, and thinking about the fact that I did want to have kids one day, and half out of a screw it and half out of a it wouldn't happen anyway based on my track record. I reached out to the University of Bonn and the University of Tübingen, basically just out of a, do you know what? What's the harm in trying? And they loved my topic. Like, they were passionate about my topic. But the idea was, I can't just go to Germany. What's Luke gonna do? And how are we gonna survive money-wise? And can I even write in English? And I had all of these questions coming up that it was like, cool, they're super passionate about my topic, and I've now reached out to them, but I've got this scholarship for Melbourne that I can't just turn down, and I've got all these expectations, and we've told everyone that we're moving to Australia. So I reached out with basically all my concerns, and they said, yep, I can write in English, we can move here, there's a lot of support from the university. And so I applied. I didn't think that I'd get in, I didn't realize what the system here was like. I think I applied more out of a rebellious, I want to see if I can do this. Still at this point, we were planning on moving to Melbourne. Luke had a plan to study in Melbourne, and then all of a sudden that fell through. He found out that he was going to be an international student because of the lockdown in New Zealand. He wasn't able to get his citizenship application processed before we'd be moving overseas, and so he'd be classed as an international student. And then we had some issues with visas because he didn't have his New Zealand passport. And even though we had our flights booked, and even though we had a plan, and we told everyone that we're going to Melbourne, Luke turns to me and he says, stuff it, let's go to Germany. And I remember sitting there again in complete shock, thinking like, what? How are we going to completely change all of our plans to go to Germany? But then the other side of me was like, this is what I have wanted since my exchange, since I was 16, 17, getting on the plane, thinking of all of these incredible adventures that I'm going to have and the dream to come back here one day. Luke just turns to me and he's like, let's do it. I think that we can do it. And this is a month out from leaving the country. So we spoke to some really good friends, and I spoke to our home group and the book club that I was a part of, and they basically all said, Germany has been the dream this whole time. One of my really good friends, Yasmin, turned to me and she's like, you keep talking about going to Melbourne because it's the safe option, but then you keep also talking about trying to fit in a study abroad so that you're not just in Melbourne, but you're also going to Europe or the UK. She's like, why would you give up your life and go to Melbourne just to look at doing a study abroad and uproot your life again for a year? And that was the statement that really changed things for me. And then we started looking at things. The fact that lockdown had pushed Luke's business online. I got an offer to extend my current work contract so that I'd go from full-time to working part-time for another year. Luke found 5 courses in Germany, all close to Tübingen, which he qualifies for. And the most expensive one is $2,000, not 180 grand. The living costs were lower than New Zealand. And so a month out from leaving, we changed everything. We bought flights for Germany, we cancelled our flights for Australia, and we decided to move without the security of a scholarship. And it was stressful. Let me tell you, it was stressful. But we did it. And we're now here in the country of my dreams that I've literally been wanting to be back since I was 17. We arrived almost to the day of my exchange. And I just can't believe that I'm here. And so, yeah, I'm still applying for scholarships. I've actually been shortlisted for 2 more here in Germany. But currently the plan is to do the PhD not on scholarship and to just work on the side. Luke's going to be working and we're just going to figure it out. So why am I recounting this? Not only is it to tell my story in the hopes that somebody else might stumble upon this video and see that they're not alone in being a failure and not getting any of the good scholarships, considering that I tallied it up while I was writing this, and I applied to 10 universities and I did 23 scholarship applications. That is unbelievable. And I'm not surprised that it took so long, and I'm not surprised that it took so much out of me and that I was so doubtful that I'd get anywhere or that I'd even start it. I'm also recounting this to tell myself that I did it. I overcame 10 applications, 23 scholarship applications, 2 of which I'm still waiting to hear back from. I overcame working full-time while studying, the stress of people's expectations, and the pain of failure. And now I'm here. I'm here in the place where I always wanted to be. And if I can overcome all of that, all of the failure, all of the rejection, all of the hopes, all of the time spent looking into countries and universities that I will possibly never even visit, if I can overcome all of that, I can do a PhD. And so despite everything else that I've gone through and the fact that I feel like if I can go through all of this, I can go through a PhD, there are 7 things that I also want to focus on so that I don't burn out or I don't become one of those people that should have had people surrounding them telling them, you can do this. These are the things that they've said that I should try and focus on, and that I guess I want to come out of my PhD with a pass or with a good pass or whatever it is that you get at the end of the PhD. No matter what, I want to have prioritized these 7 things. So I want to take time to exercise every day, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's going to the gym, whatever it is. I know that exercise is really good for my mental health. And so I really want to make sure that no matter what I do, I'm getting some sort of movement in and I'm not just sitting at my computer all day. I want to take time to explore and travel, whether that's following university holidays and taking 2 weeks off every now and then, or during the Christmas break or during the summer break, actually just putting everything down and going and exploring. In one of my previous videos, you'll see that I set out a list of areas that I want to go visit in Europe. And so I want to make sure that I do that. And every single month I go and travel to someplace new. I really, really want to take weekends off. I'm not good at taking weekends off. I feel like I just don't know what to do with myself. But I really want to take weekends off, whether it's to read my book or go explore a new place or just step away from the computer and do something that's not to do with academics. So yeah, I really want to take weekends off. I want to read for leisure. A lot of what I do for medieval history is reading. There's no experiments to break anything up, and so I think I fell out of the reading pattern, and like I hit a really big slump during my masters because I was just reading so much. But I really want to read for leisure, stuff that's completely different. I got really stuck into historical fiction during my masters, and so I think that's why I went into my slump, because everything was history. But I've come across so many genres that I'm falling in love with that I've just never experienced before. So I want to meet people, I want to join clubs, and most of all, I just want to have fun. I think I'm somebody who falls into the trap of feeling like the PhD is it, that's my life, I just have to deal with it and just keep pushing through. And I also am somebody who just dives headfirst and forgets about other things, but I really want to learn about balance, and I want to spend time with people and experience life and join a club, maybe a tramping club, so that I can see more of Germany, or I don't know, a hummus club like Jack Edwards did, or I don't know, I want to be a part and experience life during the PhD, not just study in the hopes of getting a good grade. So I guess that's it. I am really, really excited for this journey, and I'm really scared, but I know that I can do this. And to Michaela in the future, Michaela that's finished her PhD and is watching this video, congratulations, you've done this. This is huge, and I hope that revisiting this story and hearing everything that you went through has encouraged you, and that it hasn't made you feel defeated, but that, yeah, it's been the thing that empowered you to finish this and to go out with a bang and to submit that thesis. And no matter what you're dealing with, I hope that you had fun. So thanks for watching. Sorry it was really chatty and really long-winded, but I hope that somebody has maybe benefited from hearing my story. And if you just came along for the ride to listen and catch up with my life, then thanks for being here. And I'll have another vlog coming out soon. I'm vlogging my first day at the university. I vlogged the day I got my booster. Like, I've got so much footage that I just haven't had time to edit. So stay tuned, keep the notification bell on, because yeah, I don't really have a regular uploading time, but things will be coming. So thank you for the support, thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.